Today we're diving into one of the most diverse topics in the world of animated series, The Legend of Korra. Now you might wonder, why revisit Korra after all these years? Well, I've been rewatching it recently and I couldn't help but ponder why it never seemed to hit the same heights as its predecessor, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Maybe you felt the same way, or maybe you're curious if there's something you've missed the first time around. So today, we're going to explore why The Legend of Korra has been both celebrated and criticized. But stick around because by the end of this video, we'll also uncover the hidden gems and the true value that this series brings to the table. It's going to be a wild ride, and I promise it's worth your time. Okay, so let's start with the elephant in the room. The Legend of Korra is not Avatar: The Last Airbender. This is a fact that the show has been unable to escape since its creation. Avatar: The Last Airbender was a near-perfect show, a masterpiece of storytelling, world building, and its character development. It resonates with audiences of all ages and set an incredibly high bar for any sequel. When The Legend of Korra premiered, fans were expecting something that could live up to that legacy. But instead, what we got was a show that often felt disjointed, inconsistent, and sometimes downright confusing. One of the first things that rubbed the fans the wrong way was how Korra handled the legacy of the original characters. In The Last Airbender, we fell in love with the characters like Aang, Katara, Zuko, and Toph. They were more than just characters. They were heroes who overcame immense challenges and grew into wise and powerful leaders. But in Korra, these beloved characters were reduced to mere shadows of their former selves. Aang, the hero who saved the world, is revealed to have been a flawed father who played favorites among his children. Toph, the rebellious earthbender who fought against authority, ends up becoming the chief of police, an authority figure herself. And while it's understandable that people change as they grow older, these character arcs felt as a betrayal to many fans. But the issue with Korra goes deeper than just character development. Let's talk about the structure of the series. Unlike The Last Airbender, which had a clear overarching narrative, Aang must master all four elements and defeat the Fire Lord to save the world, Korra opted for a more episodic approach. Each season has its own self-contained story with a new villain and a new conflict. On paper, this sounds like a great idea. It allows the series to explore different aspects of its world and introduce new challenges for Korra to face. But in execution, this approach made the show feel disjointed and unfocused. The stakes were constantly changing, and as a viewer, it felt hard to get invested in any one storyline before it was wrapped up and replaced by something else. And then there's Korra herself. Korra is a polarizing character to say the least. She's brash, impulsive, and often makes reckless decisions that get her into trouble. She's the complete opposite of Aang, I would say, who was calm, thoughtful, and always tried to find a peaceful solution to problems. While this is refreshing to see a protagonist who isn't a carbon copy of her predecessor, Korra's character arc often feels frustrating. She's supposed to be the avatar, the bridge between the physical and spiritual world, the bridger of balance. But more often than not, she's the one causing the imbalance. From what I was able to find, one of the biggest criticisms of Korra is that she doesn't seem to grow or learn from her mistakes. Time and time again, we see Korra rush into situations without thinking, only to be bailed out by the other people around her. Whether it's Tenzin, her polar bear dog Naga, or her friends Mako and Bolin, someone is always there to save Korra from the consequences of her own actions. This lack of character growth is especially evident when you compare Korra's journey to Aang's. Over the course of The Last Airbender, we saw Aang struggle with his responsibilities, face his fears, and ultimately grow into the avatar he was meant to be. But with Korra, it often feels like she's taking one step forward and two steps back. Another area where Korra stumbles is in its handling of the lore established in The Last Airbender. One of the most controversial changes introduced in Korra is its origin of bending. In The Last Airbender, it was explained that humans learn bending from animals. The sky bison taught airbending, the badger moles taught earthbending, and so on. This explanation tied into the show's theme of harmony with nature and the spiritual world. But Korra recanted this by introducing the lion turtles, who granted humans the ability to bend elements. This change felt unnecessary and undermined the mystical spiritual nature of bending that was so important to the original series. And let's not forget about the leap in technology that we see in The Legend of Korra. In just 7 70 years, the world of the Avatar went from a pseudo-19th century setting to something resembling the 1920s, complete with steampunk technology and a bunch of metropolises. This rapid advancement felt a little jarring, especially considering that characters like Zuko and Toph were still alive. How could the world change so drastically in such a short time? While the industrialization of the Avatar world is an interesting concept, it felt out of place and disconnected from the rich, culturally rooted setting of The Last Airbender. At this point, you might be thinking, is there anything Korra did right? And the answer is yes. Despite its flaws, The Legend of Korra does have its strengths. One of the most notable is its willingness to tackle mature and complex themes. Korra isn't just about saving the world from an evil dictator. It's about exploring the consequences of power, the struggle of leadership, and the challenges of growing up in a world that is constantly changing. Korra herself is a reflection of these themes. She's not perfect, far from it, but her journey is one of learning, adapting, and ultimately finding her place in the world. One of the most powerful moments in the series comes in Book 4, when Korra is dealing with the aftermath of her battle with Zahir. After being poisoned and nearly killed, Korra is left physically and emotionally scarred. She spends much of the season struggling with PTSD, a narrative choice that was both bold and refreshing for a show aimed at a younger audience. Korra's journey to recovery is a testament to her resilience and her determination to overcome her demons. It's a reminder that even the Avatar isn't invincible, and that true strength comes from confronting your fears and growing from them. And then there was the issue of representation. The Legend of Korra broke new ground by ending the series with a same-sex relationship between Korra and Asami. While the portrayal was subtle and didn't get as much screen time as some fans would have liked, it was a significant step forward for the LGBTQ+ representation in mainstream media. The creators fought hard to include this representation, and it paved the way for more inclusive storytelling in the future. This decision alone has earned Korra a place in the history of animated television. Another area where Korra excels is in its exploration of the consequences from industrialization and modernization. While the leap in technology might have felt jarring and unexpected, it's also allowed the series to dive into the complexities of a rapidly changing world. The conflicts in Republic City, the rise of the Equalists, and the power struggles between different factions are all reflections of the real-world issues that come with progress. Korra shows us that with great power and advancement comes great challenges, and that these challenges aren't always easy to overcome. The show also deserves credit for its portrayal of leadership and the burdens that come with it. Korra isn't just a hero who saves the day. She's a leader who has the right to make tough decisions, face the consequences of her actions, and deal with the weight of the world on her shoulders. This aspect of her character is especially evident in her interactions with the other world leaders, like Tenzin, Lin Bifong, and even the villainous Kurvira. Each of these characters represent a different approach to leadership, and through them, the series explores the complexities of the governance, responsibility, and the balance of power. So where does this leave us? The Legend of Korra is a flawed show. There's no denying that. It's a series that often feels disjointed, inconsistent, and at times downright frustrating. But it's also a show that took risks, explored new territory, and brought important issues to the forefront of animated television. It may not have lived up to its lofty expectations set by The Last Airbender, but it carved out its own space in the Avatar universe and left a lasting impact on the genre. At the end of the day, The Legend of Korra is a show that's worth watching, not because it's perfect, but because it's different. It's a series that challenged its audiences, pushed the boundaries of what animated television could be, and left us with a new generation of characters and stories to love. So if you're on the fence or not about whether you should give Korra a chance, I say go for it. You might be surprised by what you find. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this deep dive into The Legend of Korra, be sure to hit that like button. Don't worry about subscribing because your mom's already subscribed to me. Anyways, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think Korra deserves the criticism it gets, or do you think it's an underrated gem? Let me know in the comments.